January 2020, the Golden Globes. The room is filled with the most powerful people in Hollywood, and Ricky Gervais is on stage doing what he does best, making everyone in the room feel incredibly small. But then he drops the Epstein line. He looks at the room and says, "I know he's your friend, but I don't care." The camera cuts to Tom Hanks. If you've seen the clip, you know the face, jaw dropped, eyes wide, looking like he's trying to disappear into his seat. Millions of people laughed, turned it into a meme, and moved on. But 6 years later, that single uncomfortable camera cut looks very different. It became the anchor for one of the most persistent and bizarre conspiracies of the decade. People didn't just stop at a meme, they started asking questions. Why that joke? Why that reaction? And does Tom Hanks know something the rest of us don't? What started as a joke at an award show spiraled into a digital detective story involving obscure actors, Instagram posts, Greek passports, and millions of pages of leaked documents. By the end of this, you'll see exactly how a single moment of social awkwardness was weaponized, what's actually true, and why, even years later, the internet still refuses to let the story die. The moment the camera cut to Tom Hanks, it wasn't just a funny reaction, it was a narrative spark. For years, the internet had been looking for a main character for their theories about Hollywood, and in that split second, they thought they found him. While most people saw a man who was simply uncomfortable with a brutally honest roast about his industry, others saw a guilty conscience. The questions didn't stop at the credits. Why did he react to the Epstein joke differently than the others? Why did he look like he wanted to be anywhere else on Earth? Within hours, the internet had dissected every micro-expression on his face. Ricky Gervais, for his part, tried to pull the plug on the speculation. In a later interview, he clarified that Tom wasn't hiding a dark secret. He was just reacting to a professional boundary being shattered. In that room, nobody mentions the unmentionable. But by the time Ricky offered his explanation, the internet had already stopped listening. They weren't looking for a comedian's take anymore. They were looking for a confession. And once that question took root, it became a runaway train that no amount of logic could stop. To understand why people were so ready to believe the worst about Tom Hanks, you have to look at 2018, 2 years before that Golden Globes moment. Enter Isaac Kappy. He was a working actor with small roles in projects like Thor and Breaking Bad, but by 2018, the work had dried up and he was looking for a new path. He didn't turn to a publicist, he turned to the fringes of the internet. During an appearance on Alex Jones's InfoWars, Kappy dropped a bombshell, accusing Tom Hanks and other industry giants of being involved in a trafficking ring. There was zero evidence, no documents, no proof, just a man on a live stream making an explosive, unsubstantiated claim. But for a growing movement, that was enough. Kappy was instantly hailed as a whistleblower. Then came the tragedy. In May 2019, Kappy died in an incident on an Arizona interstate. Authorities labeled it a suicide, citing a well-documented history of mental health struggles. But the conspiracy community didn't see a tragedy, they saw a hit job. They argued that he had been silenced for knowing too much. Because Kappy had specifically named Tom Hanks, the actor was instantly cemented as the villain in a story that had no basis in reality. The seed was planted, and it would only take one awkward camera cut to make the entire thing explode. If the Golden Globes reaction was the spark, the internet's obsession with a single photograph of a lost glove was the fuel. In April 2019, just 1 month before Isaac Kappy's death, Tom Hanks posted a photo on Instagram. It was simple, a lone plastic glove lying on the side of a road, with a Route 66 sign in the distance. The caption read, "Historic Route 66, Roadkill? I hope not, Hanks." When Kappy passed away on that same route weeks later, the internet went into a frenzy. People didn't see a random photo, they saw a coded threat. They claimed the roadkill comment was a sick joke, a confirmation that Hanks had ordered a hit, and that the photo itself was a message to other elites. The harassment became so intense that Hanks's son, Chet, had to post a heated video demanding it stop, and the family was eventually forced to disable comments and tagging entirely. But the reality is far more mundane. If you look at Tom Hanks's social media history, he has been posting photos of lost items, gloves, shoes, children's toys for years. In various interviews, he's explained it as a kind of visual haiku about separation and loneliness in a big city. It's a personal, quirky hobby he's had for a long time. But in the world of online conspiracies, quirky hobby doesn't generate clicks. Sinister warning does. Then there was the Greek citizenship. Around the same time, the news broke that Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson had been granted Greek citizenship. The internet's reaction was instantaneous. He's running, he knows the Epstein files are coming, and he's setting up an exit strategy in a country that doesn't extradite. It sounds like a blockbuster movie plot, but the truth is actually a story of humanitarianism. The citizenship was largely awarded in recognition of their active, high-profile efforts to raise awareness and funds after the devastating 2018 wildfires near Athens, which claimed over 100 lives. Rita Wilson is of Greek descent. They've been active members of the Greek Orthodox Church for decades, and they own a home on the island of Antiparos long before these theories existed. Greece wasn't an escape hatch, it was their second home. But why let the facts get in the way of a good fleeing from justice headline? Then, January 2026 arrived. The release of the Epstein files was supposed to be the moment of truth, a definitive record that would finally separate fact from speculation. Millions of pages were unsealed, and for a few chaotic hours, the internet felt like a crime scene being processed in real time. But almost immediately, the truth was hijacked. Viral posts flooded platforms featuring screenshots of lists, highlighted names, and leaked documents. One name that appeared everywhere? Tom Hanks. People shared these images millions of times, claiming his exposure was total. But here is the reality. Not a single one of those claims held water. Major news organizations and independent fact-checkers like Deutsche Welle tore through the data, and the verdict was unanimous. The lists were fabricated. Some were digitally altered. Others were simply cobbled together by blending legitimate flight logs from years ago with fictional names. Claims that his Greek citizenship was revoked because of these files, entirely false. He remains a citizen, and there is zero evidence connecting him to the Epstein network. The conspiracy didn't just survive the facts, it weaponized them. This leads to the most fascinating and perhaps most frustrating part of the story. Why does this persist? Why do people continue to share debunked screenshots even when the evidence is staring them in the face? It comes down to how our brains handle information. We are wired to love a good story more than a dry fact. A narrative about an elite secret society is compelling. A correction from a fact-checking website is, quite frankly, boring. Psychologists call this the illusory truth effect. When you hear a claim over and over, your brain starts to mistake familiarity for accuracy. On top of that, these conspiracies provide a sense of control. In a world that feels increasingly chaotic and unfair, believing there is a secret plan, even a dark one, can feel more empowering than accepting that the world is messy, random, and often beyond our control. When a debunking post comes out, it often reaches only a fraction of the people who saw the original lie, and for those who are already deeply invested in the theory, the correction is often dismissed as just another layer of the cover-up. It becomes a self-sealing loop. The more evidence you provide to prove someone is innocent, the more a true believer thinks you're just part of the conspiracy to protect them. So was that camera cut back in 2020 a calculated moment of guilt, or just a man reacting to a room that was suddenly, shockingly real? The evidence says the latter, but the story the internet built around it, that has taken on a life of its own. I'm genuinely curious what you think. Was this all just a massive, snowballing misunderstanding, or is there something about these elite mysteries that we're still missing? Drop a comment below. Let's keep the conversation going. If you found this dive into the truth helpful, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more. See you in the next one.